Bills Mafia. On tonight's Air Raid Hour post-game show, we are diving deep into all things Bills Cardinals. We've got the latest injury updates, major takeaways, and a whole lot more. Stay tuned. This is a breakdown you won't want to miss. But first,
welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
welcome into the Air Raid Hour presented by Picasso's Pizza and the Cover One Sports Network. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on Twitter at The Bills Guys, joined as always by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. Dave, in typical fashion, the Bills could not make it easy on our blood pressure, taking down the Arizona Cardinals in a heart attack-inducing fashion. Thought there could be a possibility of at least another Hail Mary there for a little bit, but they rallied, as the title card says, and defeat the Arizona Cardinals 34-28. Have you had a chance to recover yet? I know honestly, my brain is still spinning, so I might not be able to formulate a sentence tonight.
I've had a chance to recover. I went back, rewatched the game today, the condensed replay, and then did a little bit of a picking and choosing some all 22 that I wanted to watch. So it kind of got my mind in the space of like, let me try to like look at the positives from this game, because at the end of the day, the Bills did end up putting up 34 points and they did end up winning. They did end up coming back from 2 touchdowns down. And look, we said going into the game that like what week 1 Bills team were we going to get? Were we going to get like the team that really looks crisp and dominant like we did in the Rams game a couple years ago? Or are we going to get like we saw in the Steelers game 3 years back or the Jets game last year? It was kind of a mixture of both, to be honest, because the offense really, for the most part, was pretty efficient and pretty good the entire day. Josh Allen only 5 incompletions. The defense, it took them a little while to kind of get their footing. We've seen this with McDermott teams in the past where those first drives on the defense has been a struggle at times. It's usually a bit of a bend but don't break, or sometimes it's just like what are we doing? And it took them a few more drives than usual, I would say. But they eventually settled in, and thankfully there was enough time and the Bills had enough possessions in this game to ultimately kind of do what they need to do. But certainly didn't lack for excitement, nor did really the rest of the NFL for week 1, by the way, and which is why the NFL, to me, reigns supreme over college football. Just really good games all across the board. So yeah, it was a fun one, and there's no shortage to talk about from this game.
Before we dive too much into the weeds of this game, let's just take a couple of news and notes coming into this Monday, because the Buffalo Bills are on a short week. They play the Miami Dolphins on Thursday Night Football, and there are 2 big injuries to sort of talk about today, and that is to star quarterback Josh Allen and all-pro nickel corner Taron Johnson. Josh Allen appears like he likely has a broken left hand, quite frankly, from the looks of it and what we've seen and some of the things that we've been hearing, especially if you're in the Cover One Discord channel. Get that Cover One premium account, be in the Discord channel for some of that news that Eric drops. But he's going to play through it. Talking to Kyle today, banged up Bills, 3 to 6 week recovery time. Playing through it kind of risks that timeline. The issues you could see with Josh Allen are going to be handing the ball off, and gripping the ball when running. So start quarterback took some hits, took some dings, scored 4 touchdowns, but one of them cost him with a pretty significant left hand injury.
Yeah, and look, there are obviously certain things you can do to work around that based on sort of your play design, but obviously other teams are going to be aware of that too, right? Like probably going to be trying to hand the ball off with his right hand as much as possible, which means like there could be a lot more runs to the left potentially against this Dolphins team if you kind of buy into that sort of handing the ball off with the left into the back's left curled arm up, then those runs typically go to the left. So I don't know. We'll see. The Bakers, I'm not so concerned about like fielding snaps or handing the ball off. It's more about once he gets on the move,
Mhm.
protecting that hand, because he's wired to just go all out, and you worry about like, look, he's going to go all out on runs. Um, and in the moment, he may not protect himself. So that's the one thing you want to talk about. We got to bring up this super chat
Yeah.
really quick from Justin. Always appreciate that. Justin, longtime listener of the Air Raid Hour, so we do appreciate that. He says, I know it's only week one, but first half cards, receivers found holes in zone where Murray could play pitch and catch. Worry about disguising coverage without Hyde
Mhm.
and Poyer. And a lot of it was the middle of the field, right? And that's
Yeah.
we kind of talked about. And we're going to talk about that some more. But yeah,
Mhm.
it took a bit for that Bills defense to settle down, and especially over the middle of the field. I thought they actually did a good job
Mhm.
perimeter, and we'll talk about that probably
Yeah.
stock up section. But yeah, um, yeah, I mean
I
Josh Allen's hand, yeah, got to watch out, man, for that thing.
Yeah, Justin, I'm actually going to put your super chat back up in probably a minute or two here when we get to our one big thing, because I do want to talk a little bit about the Buffalo Bills secondary. And speaking of the secondary, that other major injury was Johnson, some kind of forearm injury, took some friendly fire from Taylor Rapp there in the first quarter. All we know is he is out this week, and this could be a semi-long-term injury for Taron Johnson. But he's got 11 days rest before our week 3 matchup on Monday Night Football. So hoping for the best with Taron Johnson. But Cam Lewis came in and played very, very well in relief of Taron Johnson after halftime.
He did. It's concerning that we don't have like specifics on the Taron Johnson injury. It's a
Yeah.
little weird. Like my brain immediately goes to like worst case scenario. Like, does
Yeah.
he have a broken forearm? Right. Like, and like if he does, like that's a significant injury, and
Mhm.
that maybe could even cost him the season. Like, I don't know. Right. I don't really know what the injury is other than it's to his arm. It was a little surprising we didn't hear more about that today because they've
Mhm.
had time to kind of do the MRI, do X-rays, all that kind of thing. So that's odd. It was maybe not a surprise to hear Sean McDermott quickly declare both him and Dwayne Smoot out for Thursday,
Mhm.
given the short week. But you wonder, right? Even with the extended rest after the Thursday, going into the following week's game against Jacksonville, like we don't know what the injury is, so it could be a moot point, right? It could be if it's that severe that
Yeah.
that rest doesn't matter. So hoping for a speedy recovery, hoping it's not severe, and we'll just have to wait and see as we get more information.
Yeah, you mentioned Dwayne Smoot likely out again this week per Sean McDermott. I know Ty Johnson was banged up in the game, so follow Kyle Trimble, banged up Bills on social media. Follow what he has to say, and hey, tune in Thursday night when we do our live pregame show at 6 p.m. Eastern time, leading up to kickoff. We'll be discussing the ramifications of all these injuries and how it relates to the Miami Dolphins game. Before we get to our one big thing this evening, this show is brought to you by Picasso's Pizza, 4 convenient locations in Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Picasso's Pizza has been serving Buffalo's best pizza since 1980. Whether you are a local or across the country, you can enjoy their delicious pizza delivered fresh to your door. Visit picassospizza.net to place your order today. Once again, that is picassospizza.net. All right, on to our one big thing, and this is the thing that we do every Monday, right? We sit down and we ask ourselves, there are a million different things that we could talk about today. What is the one thing that we want to get off our chest to start this show? And I'm going to lead off a little bit here this evening, just because Justin, I want to put his super chat up again because it was so generous. Thank you, Justin, for that super chat. He says, I know it's only week 1, but in the first half, Cardinals receivers found holes in the Buffalo Bills zone where Murray could play pitch and catch. Worry about disguising coverage with Hyde and Poyer gone. And I want to maybe cast a little bit of assurance here to Justin. I think the demise of this Buffalo Bills defense might be a little overblown. And I know a lot of people are panicking, especially after that first half yesterday against the Arizona Cardinals. And I'm not saying the Buffalo Bills are going to be some elite unit this year. I don't really think they have the dogs to be an elite unit. Like, you look at the elite units around the league, they've got like 3, 4, 5 just absolute alphas. I don't know if we have that amount on this Buffalo Bills defense, but This is a defense that only allowed 3 points after halftime. You have to think that this is a notoriously complex scheme built on a foundation of communication, and the Bills were without Matt Milano. They had already lost Hayden Poyer. We knew they had lost Hayden Poyer. And with no notice, about, I don't know, 5 minutes into the game, they lose Taron Johnson. So it was
Mhm.
going to take time and reps for this unit to gel regardless. And another wrench was thrown into that about 5 minutes into the game. So those halftime adjustments, the creeper pressures that you saw give Kyler Murray absolute fits, the A gap blitzes up the middle that you saw give Kyler Murray absolute fits, the play of Terrell Bernard, right? And just the way he reads and reacts, and the play of Cam Lewis was incredible in that second half. You have to give that unit, you have to give Sean McDermott, and you have to give Bobby Babich their flowers for that second half turnaround. And it kind of gives me a little bit of optimism, because we talked on these preseason shows, like, I think it's going to take the defense like 4 or 5 weeks to gel. Maybe, just maybe, it'll start clicking a little bit sooner based on how quickly they were able to turn it around against the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, and look, I'll piggyback slightly off of your talk about the defense. My one big thing, I think, was the debut of these two new coordinators. To
Mhm,
me, um, a lot of talk's going to be about, Sean McDermott and some of the decisions he made, and sort of a lot of talk's going to be about Josh Allen, and rightfully so, and his efficiency in this game. But I do want to say that my one big thing is going to be the debut of the two coordinators, and I think that both guys in their own right um, really showed patience, showed maturity, did not panic. And so a lot of those things you said, let's say with Bobby Babich on the defensive
mhm,
side, came true, right? It was not looking good early on in this game for the Bills defense. You mentioned the injuries, the adjustments that were made, some of the things that the Bills changed up. You could see a very concerted effort to increase the amount of pressure they were bringing on Kyler Murray as the game wore on, like blitzes up the middle, a little bit more deliberate pressure from the edges in Von Miller and Gregory Rousseau. Like it was definitely a change that you could noticeably tell throughout the game, that they increased and ratcheted up that
mhm,
pressure and handled, like you said, Cam Lewis came in, handled himself well. Uh, and so on. And then on the offensive side, Joe Brady, when he had his chances, like Josh Allen was 18 for 23 in this game, 5 incompletions, spread the ball around. Keon Coleman led the team in receiving yardage with 51. Joe Brady said in his press conference earlier today that they wish they could have gotten Kincaid going a bit more, but the Cardinals were doing a good job taking away Kincaid, and he
mhm,
didn't force the issue, right? He wasn't calling plays that forced the issue. And then the execution kind of played out on the other side of that. So for me, the one big thing was really good marks for these two coordinators in their debuts. It was a little touch and go, especially for the defense in the beginning, but really
mhm.
both of those guys, I think, handled themselves well. It was a good first test for them against an opponent. Yes, they should have beaten, but had to battle some adversity, really, on both sides. The defense having to deal with the injuries and being down and being making those adjustments. And on the offense, even though they were efficient, being down by 2 touchdowns and right, and
Mhm.
having to stay the course and sticking with the running game and James Cook, and that worked well. And he ripped off some chunks, and not to mention there were a couple chunks where he had that got called back from holding.
Yeah.
So um for me, my one big thing, like I said, the debuts of the coordinators, great job by both of them.
Yeah, I thought, they both of them took their lumps here and there, but in totality, both guys called a great game. One thing I want to start doing on our Mondays, hopefully our victory Mondays over the course of the season, is there's a couple of statistics in football that I'm going to be tracking as I watch every Bills game this year. And I'm going to get your thoughts on these things as each week progresses. And I'm going to sort of track how the Buffalo Bills do with these certain statistics and philosophies that people abide by in the National Football League. And the first thing I want to sort of talk about this evening is complementary football. And I've
Mhm.
created sort of a complementary football tracker. And every Bills game, there are 3 things that I am looking for. And I need the Buffalo Bills to win 2 out of these 3 things every week. And it is my belief that the Buffalo Bills can win 2 out of these 3 things every week. They will be successful. And this week proved me right, because they won 2 out of these 3 things, and they are 1-0 on the season. Those 3 things that the Buffalo Bills need to do: they need to win time of possession,
Mm.
They need to have the best average starting field position, and they need to win the turnover battle. This week, time of possession was Arizona Cardinals 29-30, Buffalo Bills 30-30. It was 2010 Cards at the half. It was not looking good
Yeah, I
for
was
the
just about to
Buffalo
say,
Bills.
they
And
kept showing that graphic. It was, brutal
the
for the Bills in the
the
first
Bills
half.
legitimately flipped it and brought it back to a tie and then won it by like a full minute by the end of the game. So that was
Wild.
pretty impressive. Average starting field position. Now, I did not count the last kickoff of the first half because the Cardinals just ended up kneeling. It didn't really count. I didn't count the Buffalo Bills kneel at the end either. But the average starting field position, this is a big one. Cardinals 28.5-yard line, Bills 41-yard line. The Bills had way better starting field position in this game. And then the turnover battle was tied 1-1. So barely the Buffalo Bills win this one, but they are 2-1 in the complimentary football tracker, and they are 1-0 now on the season when playing good complimentary football.
Yeah, and obviously Codrington with the big kick return helped that field position
The
statistic as
Rousseau
well.
strip sack.
Rousseau strip sack, but also,
Mhm.
Tyler Bass kicked it out of the, out of bounds on the last, possession the Cardinals had. That gave them the ball in the 40. So that was
Mhm.
showed you the rest of the game how good the Bills were doing, and gotta give a
Yeah.
slight tip of the cap to Sam Martin, even though I don't want to, because he had two pretty good punts. So hey, if he only has to punt twice a game, I think
Mhm.
generally we're gonna be okay with that. Um, the starting field position did make a difference, and especially
Mhm.
when you give this Bills offense a short field, you got to cash in on those. And it was nice to see them take advantage of it, right?
Mhm.
We've gotten frustrated with them at times in the past where they've been given good field position and they've either squandered it or had to settle for field goals. And they didn't really do that in this game, which was nice
Mhm.
to see. That it was a pretty clean game, honestly, by
Yeah.
both teams as far as the turnovers. You mentioned only one each, the Josh Allen fumble and then the Kyler Murray fumble. Fortunately for the Bills, the Josh Allen fumble was in plus territory versus the Kyler fumble was deep
Mhm.
in their own territory. So that was a big advantage for the Bills on that one. So even though it was a 1-1, both turnovers being kind of the same variety, quarterback sack, um, fumbles, where they occurred on the field was obviously a big advantage for the Bills in that particular
Mhm.
category. So I'd almost give it another half point for the Bills on that one.
And then the second piece of data I want to track every week is toxic differential. I know Aaron Quinn is a big fan of toxic differential as well. I've sort of amended it a little bit. Toxic differential, the true definition of toxic differential is how many 10 plus yard runs, explosive runs a team accumulates, how many 20 plus yard passes a team accumulates, explosive passes, and how many turnovers a team forces compared to how many turnovers they have themselves. I've amended it a little bit from 20 plus yard passes to 15 plus yard passes. And it was kind of sort of a
Mm.
light bulb moment today. I was listening to local Arizona radio here on my way home, and Jonathan Gannon was talking to the two local radio hosts. And I originally did not count Khalil Shakir's 19-yarder at the end of the first half as a explosive play because it was only 19 yards. It falls underneath that 20 plus criteria. And Jonathan Gannon literally referred to that play as an explosive on the radio. That's one of his favorite terms if you've ever seen
Oh
those
yeah.
Jonathan Gannon videos.
Oh yeah.
Uh, shots. But he was also talking about just the way the Buffalo Bills play defense. He was like, they were in drop coverage, they were in quarters, they were in cover six. Like, he's like, guys, we ran the ball and we threw the ball underneath for a reason. Like, because the Buffalo Bills weren't allowing us to throw it deep. There was a safety over top the whole game. And that's the NFL now, right? Like, that is literally why Josh Allen's passing chart looks the way Josh Allen's passing chart looks like. Like, this is why the Buffalo Bills wanted to add a complementary running game, just because every other NFL team is trying to follow like that Detroit Lions, San Francisco model and add a complementary running game, because that's how you win in the NFL now. You got to be able to beat teams underneath. So the Buffalo Bills are doing what they need to do to accommodate and transition and change to the way defenses have adjusted and changed to some of these vertical offenses. So I changed it to 15 plus yard passes as opposed to 20-yard passes. So it's a modified toxic differential tracker here. But 10 plus yard runs, the Cardinals had 4, the Bills had 2. They had so many 9-yard runs, like just so many, but not 10. 2 15 plus yard passes for the Cardinals, 5 for the Buffalo Bills, and then each team had 1 turnover. So the Buffalo Bills were +1 in toxic differential in this game. So they are now 1-0 on the season when winning the toxic differential battle.
Yeah, and the Cardinals really, they were nickel and diming the Bills those first 3 possessions. It wasn't a
Mhm.
ton of huge plays like you meant. I mean, you mentioned they only had 2 passing plays that met that threshold the entire game, and um, but James Conner was really working it the first the first half for the Cardinals. So
Mhm.
you would have thought with Kyler Murray only having 3 incompletions and all this going into halftime, the Cardinals would have had a ton, but it was the underneath stuff, like you said. So they were efficient. The Bills were allowing it. Ultimately, the Bills' passing game created more explosives, and that was one of the differences in the game
Mhm.
was the Bills were able to get chunk yardage through the air.
Yeah.
The Cardinals, while efficient, was taking them multiple more plays to do so, and so yeah, I mean, it was tight again, but again, like all these
And
things kind of add up to a one possession game at the end.
And this game could have went a heck of a lot differently if the Buffalo Bills did not convert on third down the way they convert on third down. Khalil Shakir's 19-yarder was on third down. James Cook on that scramble drill was on third down.
Mhm.
And I believe one of those second half touchdowns, I'm blanking on which one, was on third down. Like the Bills were converting on third down in some very, very clutch situations because in the second half specifically, and we're going to get to this when we talk about sort of some of the negative takeaways. They were in some down and distances a lot in the second half because they were not really being very effective on first down in the second half. So Josh Allen and that offense bailed them out. And that's the one great thing about having Josh Allen as your quarterback. No third and whatever is too long when Josh Allen is your quarterback. But kudos to the Bills for being extra effective on some third and long situations in the second half, or this game could have gone a completely different way.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the Bills only converted 3 third downs, right? They were 3 of 9, but
Mhm.
they were all very important ones, and there
Yep.
were a couple that they didn't, where obviously the QB sneak that Josh Allen had deep in Cardinals
Oh,
territory
we're
was a
gonna get
4th
to that. Don't you
was a
worry.
was a 4th and very short, and there were a couple others where they kicked the field goal, so,
Yeah.
wasn't all bad news on that front. The Cardinals, on the other hand, right, they were really
Yeah.
good on third down all
Yep.
day. I mean, at one point, I think they were like 5 of 6. They ended up finishing 7 of 13, which is any over 50%
Mhm.
in the NFL on third down that's putting you at the top of the league. The Bills were number 1 in third down conversion percentage last year as a team in the entire NFL, and they were at like 47, 48%. So,
Yep.
kudos to the Cardinals as well for being so good on third down. But the Bills coming up in big moments on third down. You're right.
Mm.
They got put behind the chains a lot. That stat that was crazy to me was like into the third quarter, they were saying the average distance to go for the Bills on third down was over 10 yards at one point.
Yeah.
And so that just tells you how behind the sticks they were when they're beyond the starting yardage of the down and distance
Mhm.
to for their average on third down. So yeah, big
So
time.
a little sneak preview of our stock down, but before we get to stock down, got to talk a little stock up here and talk about some of our positive takeaways from this football game. Dave, I'm just going to start with you. Like, what's one positive thing, and we can just sort of list all the positive things we have in
Mhm.
our show notes here. What's one positive thing you can take away from this football game? Some stock ups, as they say.
Yeah, let's start with I think something that was on everybody's mind, something that's been on everyone's mind since April, and that's Keon Coleman's
Hmm.
performance. We're going to talk about Josh Allen throughout this entire show, but let's talk about Keon Coleman a bit as a stock up. Led the team in targets, led the team in receiving yards. Um, Looked very sure-handed, no drops from him.
Hmm.
Made the big play down the sideline with the body control, which, by the way, his jersey was getting tugged on that. If you watch the replay or even on the broadcast view, like you can see the chest portion of
Hmm.
his jersey getting tugged on, and he still made the catch.
Yeah.
Strong hands at that point of contact there. So, look, people are going to look at the box score and be like, 4 catches for 50 whatever yards, and kind of just like shake it off. But like, really don't. I mean, my one of my hot take kind of predictions came true. Josh Allen was under 25 pass attempts in this game. Keon Coleman led the
Hmm.
way in yardage, and so it was a very encouraging first game for a guy like Keon Coleman being relied on in multiple ways down the field, on the sideline, leading the team in targets, a couple, even intermediate throws up the middle and up the seam.
Yeah.
So, stock up for Keon Coleman after Bills fans were losing their mind on Thursday night, seeing Xavier Worthy score 2 touchdowns. Look, wasn't necessarily the spectacular touchdown, huge game
Hmm.
breaking play, but that play down the sideline came at an important time. At a time that the Bills ended up needing that touchdown to kind of put themselves up by double, by multiple possessions. That was
Yeah.
a huge play in the game.
I'm still kind of mad on the very next play. Josh Allen tossed one up to Keon Coleman in the end zone, but he didn't hit that back shoulder. Because I
Yeah.
think if he could have hit that back shoulder, I think Keon would have had a chance to make a play for a touchdown. And Josh Allen doesn't have a broken
Yeah.
left hand.
He kind of threw it
Yeah.
through the end zone
Mhm.
instead of giving Coleman a chance to come back
Yeah.
on the back shoulder. Like, he had no chance to run through the guy. So, yeah,
Mhm.
I think that one's maybe more on Josh, but
Oh,
that's just something
100%. Yeah.
but that's just something too that, those 2 are
Mhm.
gonna have to kinda, learn that chemistry is gonna have to continue to build over time. But yeah, I wanted that one too. That would have been
Spe
nice.
Speaking of the receiver position, Post Mafia comes in and says, "Stock up as everybody eats." And I think that's my number one takeaway is just the selfless football. And on a week where Stefan Diggs is certainly making some decisions with the words he utilizes in his press conferences and his GQ articles, whatever, the Buffalo Bills, I think, are certainly uh, passive aggressively using their words in press conferences in a certain way because you hear words like selfless, you hear words like everybody eats, you hear words like doesn't care how many targets they had when referring to Dalton Kincaid today. Selfless football for the Buffalo Bills. 10 guys targeted, 9 guys caught passes. No one complained, Joe Brady said, even Dalton Kincaid. This offense is going to be week to week, game plan specific. It's going to be new guys stepping up every week, depending on that game plan. And there's just this element of unpredictability that I think is going to be really fun.
Yeah, and again, so that's kinda goes back to the Coleman point with it being,
Mhm.
very spread out, right? You mentioned it right there, and this was a day that we didn't even really see a ton from the tight end, so, that one my hot take prediction of only the tight ends scoring receiving touchdowns was the total opposite of what actually happened. It was only receivers that scored touchdowns between the 2 teams, but, you go down the list, Coleman 5 targets, Shakir 3, Cook 3, Hollins 2,
Mhm.
Knox 2, MVS 2, Samuel 2. Quiet days for Curtis Samuel and Dalton Kincaid, which were the 2 guys maybe going
Yep.
into this season that I think we all presume will be the kinda top 2 playmakers, or target getters for this team, but that could be something that we see kinda fluctuate week to week, so the everybody eats mentality, I think,
Yep.
is going to truly be a week to week thing. And it's going to drive people crazy when it comes to fantasy football and all that. But it could lead to this offense being
Mhm.
more efficient.
Yeah, you look at even just the snap percentage. Keon Coleman, I was shocked that he led the team or the receiving room in snaps at 73%. Matt Collins came in second at 58%. Khalil Shakir third at 53%. Curtis Samuel, a shocking 4 at 27%. That's probably injury related with that turf toe, wanting to rest him up for Miami and maybe even, that Monday night game the week after, give him some extra rest. And then Marquez Valdez Scantling, very clear role, run
Mm,
downfield fast, and then sometimes fake it and curl, but 21% of the snap share. So an interesting allocation of snaps for the wide receivers. I think that's going to change week to week. There are some weeks where Shakir and Samuel are going to dominate. There are some weeks where the Buffalo Bills want to run the ball and Coleman and Hollins are going to dominate. And it's just going back to that word selfless, right?
mhm.
These guys don't care. They want to do what's best for the team. They want to win. There aren't egos in that room like there had been previously. And that element of unpredictability and being able to be so versatile and to just literally from drive to drive completely change the way your offense looks and the way defenses have to defend your offense, even from play to play. Absolutely incredible the versatility this Buffalo Bills offense has. And I can't wait to see how Joe Brady continues to evolve this offense with all these different chess pieces, right? Dalton Kincaid could become an alpha. James Cook could become an alpha. Maybe Keon Coleman in his own way, even though I think he's a niche receiver, becomes an alpha. But there really is just a lot of movable chess pieces in that room.
Yeah, there is. I mean, it almost it sounds bad, but it's almost like they don't really have a guy that like
Demands it.
demands it, has the ego or
Yeah.
deserves
Yeah, can't
deserves
talk.
it. Yeah, they don't really have a guy that's
Yeah.
good enough to kind of
It's like,
warrant
who
that.
who the hell are you?
Yeah, and so it's
Demand.
it's kind of a
Yeah.
weird. situation. But
It's like
yeah,
in Madden when you're playing and like the player wants to talk to you and he's like, "Coach, I really think that I need to be more involved." It's like, dude, you're the fourth receiver, bro.
dude, you're 70 overall. Get out of here.
um, but Khalil Shakir, we've been talking. I mean, when we did our draft shows years ago, what were some of the things that we said about him? He's like a running back once he catches the ball,
Mhm.
and you saw that. And I remember on Thursday night watching that first Xavier Worthy touchdown and thinking to myself, we got to find ways to get Khalil Shakir the ball like that. And now we didn't hand the ball off to him, but I feel like the Buffalo Bills put Khalil Shakir, especially on that touchdown, in a position to just pinball off of people. And the second that guy catches the football, he's a running back, man. That contact balance is just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I recall, and probably pull up the show when I said this when we were doing the pre-draft process on him. I was like, you know what? There's something about him. Every game I watch, he's not the fastest guy, but he always kind of found a way to get these like extra hidden yards, right? And it was like in a different way that
Mhm.
Cole Beasley did it, because Cole Beasley did it more with like separation and kind of like quickness, whereas Shakir just kind of like does it through contact, right? He just
Mhm.
finds a way. You're like, somehow that dude just like got an extra 4 or 5 yards, and I don't know how he did it through all this contact, but he just finds a way to do that multiple occasions, right? Not just the
Yeah.
touchdown, but the big third down earlier in the game where he bounced off a defender. This was before halftime, and got an extra 10,
Yeah.
15 yards.
Huge play.
Huge play. Not to mention the other catch he had was a long third down, which he got
Mhm.
the Bills to within 4th and 2, and they end up going for that 4th down and getting the conversion. Josh Allen gets it on his legs. So, although, again, only 3 catches, like 3 huge, huge catches in the game, they were
Mhm.
all critical and they were all important, but, the contact balance is incredible. Let this guy work with the ball in his hands, like you said, after the catch, he becomes a running
Mhm.
back, and he just finds those hidden yards all the time.
Do you remember my pre-draft comp for Khalil Shakir?
Let me see if I can remember. Uh,
Former Buffalo Bill.
oh, was it it wasn't Emmanuel Sanders, was it?
No, Bobby Trees, baby, Robert
Oh,
Woods.
Bobby Woods. Yeah, yeah, you're
He
right.
reminds me so much of Robert Woods, man. A
Yeah,
young Robert
no,
Woods,
he does.
before all the injuries, but,
No,
uh
that's good, yeah.
yeah, and then James Cook too. Want to give a shout out to James Cook and even Ray Davis. I thought Ray Davis looked good in his
Yep.
minimal attempts, but James Cook was cooking, right? Like he showed he can catch a ball. When the ball started to him, he does have the ability to catch it. He had some really explosive plays. The Buffalo Bills set the tone on the ground with explosive plays in the first half. Got a little predictable in the second half, and we're going to talk about that in stock down. But in the first half, the Buffalo Bills set the tone on the ground.
They did, and look, Ray Davis, the catch and run he made to get that one first down, like,
The
it was
adjustment was great.
the adjustment and, like, the body contortion to
Mhm.
kind of not kill his entire momentum and kinda having to turn upfield there was really cool to see, and then the 2 runs he had kind of right after that were really nice. I mean, you could tell
Mhm.
the guy runs with a lot of, um, a lot of aggression, and, like, he wasn't afraid to initiate contact, which was great, and, um, it seemingly like he again, there was just this everybody eats thing. It's like little, only a few touches, but made them count, and I just feel like that's kind of been the theme with, like, everybody. Like, I think everyone on the offense was pretty
Mhm.
efficient with all their touches, and
Yeah.
starting with the quarterback, right? Josh Allen was efficient with his passing. But man, yeah, it was encouraging. The rookies, in the stock up, Keon Coleman and Ray Davis definitely made their mark, and it was an encouraging first week for them.
On to the defense now, and, shame on us for waiting 34 minutes to bring up these 2 names, but Gregory Rousseau and Von Miller. Rousseau, 3 sacks. He set the edge really nice on some run plays and got some good run stops or set up some really good run stops. I mean, flat out, Gregory Rousseau looked like an all-pro.
Yep. And I mean, look, I know one of the sacks was like a force out of bounds, whatever, but like he was all over the field, 3 tackles for loss, had the 3 sacks. And look, the way he was able to use his length, like this is
Mhm.
why you draft a guy who's 6'6" and has the wingspan he has, because on one of those first sacks, he dips under the lineman, uses his left arm all however many inches of it and
Yeah.
trips up Kyler Murray to get that sack. Like, you cannot teach the length that was required to make that type of play. Like,
Mhm.
yes, he made a nice dip move there, but like that length he has is going to be a problem for opposing offensive lines. And like we said going into the season, we changed our tune from the summer. We said before the season, we're like, who's going to lead this team in sacks? In the summer, we kind of said it would maybe be Ed Oliver. Then we changed our tune and said Gregory Rousseau before
Mhm.
the season started, that if he could take that incremental next step, he could be an all pro caliber player. And what a way to start the season for
Yeah.
him, man. Him being healthy and him being that disruptive, that kind of softened the blow a bit about losing Taron Johnson
Mhm.
early in the game. But man, he had just he should be the
Yeah.
AFC Defensive Player of the Week.
Yeah, I think TJ Watt might have that one locked up
Yeah,
just because I think he
true,
might have had a
true.
game-winning sack there at the end, and it's TJ Watt. But yeah, Rousseau was impressive, and you mentioned the dip there too. Maybe one of the more under the radar things about the Von Miller edition is just like the impact that he has on some of the other young pass rushers. Like you see AJ Epinesa and the ghost move that he likes to utilize, and you see the way that Gregory Rousseau is kind of dipping in the way he never really dipped before Von Miller got here. So that was always fun to see. And then Von Miller, 1 sack, 5 pressures, 3 pressures on third down. I think the Bills probably used Von Miller more than they wanted to use Von Miller because of injuries. And I'm still, I know he made that one play on special teams, but I'm watching KC2 Hall on defense, and I'm like, how did he make this football team? I don't get it. But Von Miller, I think he's going to get even better as the season progresses. And I think he's going to get even better as his workload is lessened. 48% of the snaps. I was expecting lower than that. But I think injuries sort of went into him playing more percentage of the snaps, but he took advantage of it. 1 sack, 5 pressures.
Yeah, he did. And like, people might say, oh, well, he was given that courtesy sack, but really it was him who caused the sack, right? I mean, he
Yeah.
did push the lineman back into Kyler Murray, who then tripped and he, touched him down. But like that was because of Von Miller. And
Hmm.
maybe Von Miller, right? Like his game, has had to evolve a bit for himself, right? Where like strength is now maybe going to be a bigger part of his game than it had been in the past when he had that burst in the past. Maybe the strength aspect of his pass rush wasn't exactly, that wasn't necessarily his top element,
Hmm.
but this maybe is going to become an element for him this year where maybe the burst isn't quite what it was, but like using that upper body a little bit more. And he's still extremely smart at the position and technical, and he knows what he's supposed to do. So look, got the sack, and it was encouraging, I would say, as a first game for
Just
Von Miller of the season to get a sack and kind of get that under his belt.
mhm.
Maybe that's gonna open the floodgates a bit. I'm not gonna say he's gonna go on a tear of any kind, but like
just
getting that first one I mean, that
mhm.
could lead to some momentum for him.
Just need him to recreate Leonard Floyd's 2023, but like do some of it after week 8. Like that would be great. Some other standouts. I thought Terrell Bernard struggled a little bit early, but I also think just the entire Bills defense was struggling to communicate and they were just a step behind. But once they all got on the same page, Terrell Bernard became the Terrell Bernard that we all know. 11 tackles in the game. Cam Lewis, just that second half was unbelievable. I was having a grand old time being a University of Buffalo graduate, watching a guy like Cam Lewis ball out 9 tackles from that nickel position, shut up a lot of people who were in my comments for the last 2 years since that Vikings game saying, why is Cam Lewis still on the football team? Like, there's a reason why Cam Lewis is still on this football team. He's a good football player. He's a great depth piece to have, and he showed up in a big way in this game. I thought Rasul Douglas and Christian Benford, those 3 guys, Lewis, Douglas, Benford, I thought were exceptional, and they flashed for me, and Terrell Bernard flashed for me. So those 4 guys on the back end really, really, I thought stood out.
The back end was great. I mean, they had a perfect game plan, and this goes back to the credit to Bobby Babbage too on Marvin Harrison Jr. Obviously, I think a little bit of that too is like, hey, it's his first game as a pro as well. So, like in a way, fortunate that the Bills did play Marvin Harrison. I think in his first game, they had a great plan for him. Rasul Douglas and Benford play great. I mean, Marvin Harrison's going to have a great year, I
I
think.
think
But
Jonathan Gannon on local Arizona radio was like, yeah, kind of like weren't expecting the Buffalo Bills to just try to take Marvin Harrison Jr. away in his first game. And they did. So we went elsewhere.
Yes.
they're like, we're gonna have to do a better job figuring that out, get him moving, etc. Like he's gonna get more targets.
But that goes back to what we said in the pregame, right? It was like
Mhm,
the Bills are going to try to take away the big play from this Cardinals offense, right? They are going like that's why I said we got to respect Trey McBride
mhm.
and James Con. Like they were not going to try. They were not going to let the Cardinals have something cheap down the field, right?
Yeah.
They were going to make them earn it, and they did, right? And the Cardinals did earn it
Mhm.
and prove that. And so they did have to make some adjustments, but they didn't let Marvin Harrison kind of break out and like get like a long score to kind of like change momentum. Like didn't happen. So credit to Babbage and those boundary
Yeah.
guys and the safeties.
And seeing the Cardinals week 1 too, the one advantage we did have, and I know Joe Marino mentioned this when he did like his schedule preview show when I was listening to Locked on Bills. I know you've mentioned people have mentioned this, like, oh, we get to face the Cardinals and Marvin Harrison Jr. before him and Kyler Murray can build any type of chemistry, before they can get comfortable. They didn't take any preseason snaps together because Kyler didn't play in the preseason, and Marvin Harrison Jr. just jogged through like 4 plays. Like
Yeah.
Jonathan Gannon doesn't believe in playing his guys in the preseason, and he said on his post in his interview today, we didn't want to overload him. We only played him at the X. We didn't move him around. So I
Yeah.
mean, they literally made him a standing target. Like they did not move him around. They did not motion him. They did not put him in the slot. They did nothing creative with Marvin Harrison Jr. They just let him play the X, and that probably really helped the Buffalo Bills defend him.
Yeah, because I do think over the course of this season that Cardinals offense is going to be
Mhm,
really fun and really good. And they were still good even without that. And so yeah, I'm not necessarily saying the Cardinals are going to be a playoff team, but I think they are going to be a tough out for teams, and I
mhm.
think they will be an improved team from what they were last year, obviously with Kyler only playing the 8 games. So, yeah, I do think it was an advantage for the Bills to play the Cardinals early in the season.
Pops Mafia comes in and says, University of Buffalo players stock up. I'm not going to lie. Jamarcus Ingram, play of his life. What a redemption after that penalty, which was not a penalty in the first half, but also got canceled out by Zaven Collins' penalty that wasn't a penalty. So it's all good.
Zayvon
It's all
Collins
good.
had a nice game. Could we just say
I
like
love Zaven Collins,
he
dude.
had a good game.
When they were like tearing that team down last year, I wanted to trade for. Everyone was like, "Who is that other guy that from Clemson that everyone wanted?" The safety who just no one could find a position for him. He got traded to the Giants. I'm blanking on his name, but everyone wanted him. And I'm like, nah, dude, if you can get Zaven, he is a good football player. Just got an extension there in Arizona. But I'm not going to lie, I got a little choked up watching that post-game presser where Sean McDermott called Jamarcus Ingram over and said, hey, look, like this dude is what we're all about right here. Like meeting the moment, stepping up, working for your opportunity. So it was great to see a guy like Jamarcus Ingram rewarded for all the hard work that he put in. Thank you. It was Isaiah Simmons, who in New York, which is a whole other kind of tire fire right now. We're not going to talk about. We're not going to talk about that. Brian Dable might be available as an office coordinator if Joe Brady gets a head coaching job. Joe
That
Shane, you want to come back to be the assistant GM, buddy?
I was watching.
Uh,
I still don't understand some of like what they allowed on TV from that Hard
oh,
Knocks off season. Like the
everyone
Giants
was like,
just.
and everyone was like, Joe Shane looks great. And I'm like, guys,
I was like, no, he doesn't.
I was like, he looks so like he looks like his owner is on his very last legs. Like he
He
looks
did
very
not look.
reactionary. Like everything about Joe Shane did not look very like in control at all in watching the portions of Hard Knocks that I did. But my final positive takeaway was Tyler Bass, 2 for 2 on field goals, only a long of 39, but it was a windy day, and then 4 for 4 on extra points. So Tyler
Yeah,
Bass, cool,
the
cool.
the the field goal and punting
Mhm.
was a good day
Yeah,
for the kicking units. We'll talk
kick
about some more.
returning, not defending the kickoff return, but kick returning.
Yes, we'll talk a little bit about
Oh,
stock down of something else, but yeah,
one positive I just want to throw out there, and I'm sure other shows have mentioned it, so I'm sure people have heard it, but the double dip,
yeah, the double dip was
the
nice.
14-point double dip. I made a total fool of myself because I was like, at this rate, the Bills can't come back because we're not going to have the ball enough to score. And I really wasn't thinking ahead that we had the ball and then it was halftime and then we got the ball
Yeah,
back. I
because last
immediately had
year
to
we
retract. I immediately had to retract the tweet. I'm like, I take everything back. Like, I'm not going to delete this because I don't delete. But like, I immediately I'm like, this is stupid. I just said the stupidest thing. Please forgive me.
but also like I felt like last year we never got the ball in the second half. It felt like we always lost the coin toss, and so the Cardinals actually won the coin toss and chose to receive.
Thank
So
you. Thank you,
that was
Arizona.
interesting.
Appreciate
Yeah.
that. All right, on to sort of the final segment here. Stock down. There are always things that can be improved upon, and certainly this kind of was sort of like maybe the Bills' fourth preseason game, as somebody in the comment section said earlier. Ralph Wilson Sr. said in the comment section earlier. So there were some things that needed to be worked out, and the Buffalo Bills had to use, unfortunately, our regular season to work those things out. What are some negative? What is a negative takeaway you might have had from this game?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably fairly minor. I mean, hopefully it's fairly minor in the scheme of things, but like 2 instances on kickoff coverage, or kickoff teams that did not go well. Number 1, obviously kicking to DJ Dallas in that return, the coverage on that after the Bills really outside of the kick at the end of the first half where the Cardinals did return it, they'd been really kicking it through the rest of the game and just allowing the Cardinals to take the ball to 30, and then the kickoff out of bounds at the end of the game, giving the Cardinals, who only needed a touchdown and an extra point to win, the ball at the 40 to start that final drive. I don't understand why in that scenario you're getting cute. Like just kick it through the end zone at that point. So there's still a little bit to be desired in areas of the special teams, even though overall in the day, we mentioned with the kicking and the punting and then the kick return from Codrington, like it wasn't a bad day overall for special teams, but that allowing that touchdown and then on the last drive, kicking it out of bounds, a little bit of
And
a negative for me there.
and apparently it was the wind that sort of dictated both of those things. Like Tyler Bass couldn't get out of the back of the end zone, and that's the reason why he returned the kick, and then that's the reason why he tried to pooch the kick and it ended up out of bounds. So just the wind played a role, right? We talked about it in the
It did.
pregame show. So I just the new kick return rule is only really gonna be a factor when A, teams are stupid, or B, wind won't allow them to
It
kick the
did.
ball through the end zone because teams are just going to give the other team the ball at the 30-yard line. Like this, it seems like that's what most teams are going to do when the wind allows them to.
I was talking to someone else and I'm like, I gotta tell you, like, I don't get, like, I don't,
Hot,
the new kickoff rule is stupid
hot,
to me.
hot take, and people will tell me this is so anti-football. Just, I'm a key believer that two things need to change in football. Number one, get rid of the extra point. I hate it. It's stupid. Just give teams 7 points for a touchdown. If they want to go for 2, they can go for 2. Just give them 7 freaking points. And if they go for 2 and miss, they give them 6. Right? That's number one. Stop wasting our time with an extra point and then going to commercial. Like, just give them 7 and then go to commercial. Like, I just
No, it
be
was
done with
even
that.
dumber before when they were kicking
And
it from
then,
like 19 yards, right? At least now
yeah,
there's a chance they could miss it, but
and
like,
then on top of that, just get rid of the kickoff in general and just give the team the ball at the 30-yard line. Just do it. Like, I don't need kickoffs anymore. Like, and if you want to onside kick it, like give like a 4th and 15, right? Like, and then if you don't get it, the other team gets the ball back. Like, I'm just done with special. I'm not a big special teams guy. Everyone knows that. I like offense. I like defense. I don't like special teams. But anyway, I want to preface my big negative here by saying I totally understand that A, we have Miami on a short week and we want to save some playbook. That B, we wanted to shake off some preseason rust and we didn't want to get sugar high Josh Allen again in week 1. And I want to stress that C, I understand that this game plan was opponent specific to the Arizona Cardinals because of their weakness in run defense. But the second half run pass on first down ratio to me was a little worrisome from Joe Brady. The Buffalo Bills, I went through and I charted first down runs in the first half, 7 for 55 yards. They averaged 7.8 yards per play compared to 6 passes for 47 yards, which is also 7.8 yards per play. They did have that turnover on the Josh Allen fumble. So really the Buffalo Bills had a good balance in the first half and they were getting a lot of yards, 7.8 yards per play. But then you look at the second half, 12 second half first down runs compared to 4 first down passes. That's a pretty significant imbalance. And the Buffalo Bills only averaged 2.4 yards per play on those runs compared to 7.8 in the first. And they had 5 plays of 1, 0, or negative yards. To me, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more balance on first down, and I think you would have seen the yards per play go up, but also can't really talk. We mentioned Josh Allen saved the day on some of those third downs, and the Bills picked up those yards on second and third, and then sometimes fourth down, and they still scored the points necessary to win. I don't think that this is something that's going to be a trend. I really do think it was opponent specific, but it was a little worrisome to me, and something I will keep an eye on.
That's fair. I mean, definitely, if it becomes a trend, or we'll see, we'll kind of see. I think for me, another slight stock down, and this is really not anything that's necessarily in the team's control, but it's more of just like a negative vibe type of thing. And this is just like facing, like, it's week 1, and like there were a ton of injuries around the NFL already. We saw Jake Ferguson, we saw Puka Nakua get injured last night. We saw David Njoku get injured. Like, guys that are going to be missing multiple weeks. And like, so it is a bummer to see guys getting injured already in week 1 on top of the injuries that we're already battling, right? Like, Curtis Samuel wasn't on the injury report. I get it. Were they saving him for Miami? Maybe so. Presumably he's 100%. We don't know. Taron Johnson getting injured. Josh Allen hurting his hand. Obviously Milano's out. We already knew about that. Dwayne Smoot, we don't know when he's going to be back. He was quickly declared out for Thursday already as well. So a stock down, I guess, is more of just like the general vibe and injury, like injury news for this team already through 1 week. It's just so frustrating to deal with.
Your wife's dealing with it too over there.
Oh, Jordan Love, yeah. Yeah, no kidding. Although I think, that's rough, but I guess like they were fearing the worst for that. And so it looks like he's only going to, they didn't even put him on IR. So we'll see how many games he misses. But yeah, injuries are just a bummer across the league. I don't like it for any team, to be honest. Like, obviously I, care more about the Bills injury situation, but you just hate seeing all these injuries. It's just the nature of the game, but you just hate to see it anyway.
Bills or Pops Mafia comes in and says pre-snap penalties. Yeah, I mean, that was one thing I had, right? Like 9 for 65, and that was just the penalties that were counted. The mental errors, like, it's week 1. You could even look at this game almost as an extension of the preseason a little bit, because the starters did miss most of the preseason. But again, just a sloppy game, unable to put a team away that you should have put away. Like, I just feel like we went through that so much last year. Like, just thinking back, and there were games last year where we had that, and we put teams away like the New York Giants, and then there were games where we blew games that we should have won, like the Denver Broncos, and just it brought up so many bad sort of memories there. Watching this Buffalo Bills team up 11, give up a special teams touchdown. The one sequence that really ticked me off the most was, it wasn't Sean McDermott not going for it on fourth down and kicking the field goal to go up 6, even though that was just blood pressure inducing in its own right. And he explained it post game, and it's whatever. I'll shake it off. I didn't agree with it, but I'll shake it off. My biggest issue was not the 4th and 2. And everyone's like, oh, fourth down, just take the points, trust your defense, blah, blah. My issue was not the 4th and 2. My issue was the play before. And if you guys remember the play before, it was 3rd down, and Josh Allen breaks the huddle with like 9 seconds left on the play clock, and he's rushing up to the line of scrimmage, and he hurriedly just calls a play, and it's like a mesh, and he takes the run pass option, and he runs, and he gets stuffed for like no gain or 1 yard. And that's what leads to the 4th and 2. The Buffalo Bills literally rushed that play. I don't think it was a very good play. Josh Allen is typically pretty good at picking up first downs on 3rd and 3. To me, and this can go on, it can't go on Joe Brady because he's up in the booth. But this can go on Josh Allen. This can go on Sean McDermott. I know you're trying to milk clock. Somebody's got to call timeout there. Somebody has to call a timeout there, and you have to draw up a better play on 3rd and 2, or on 3rd and 3, pick up that first down, and then you can just milk the clock and win that football game without having to put it on no offense, but Cam Lewis, that was pass interference or illegal contact on Greg Dortch. Like, it was. They should have been even further and closer to the goal line. And then, leaving it up to your defense and Jamarcus Ingram to have to make that stop. Like, they didn't have to do that to us, in my opinion. The Buffalo Bills could have made it a Could have made it a 13-point game, or excuse me, a 10-point game, or they could have just ran the clock out if they would have just had a better play on that 3rd and 3.
Yeah, it definitely seems like that's an area where it's just tough. I think we find ourselves in the situation, and maybe this something Sean McDermott's just tough for him to get over the hump on this is like gets almost like super conservative or like tightens up at the very ends of these games instead of like just going for the jugular. And then, like we seem to just like mishandle a lot of these situations. Like it happened a lot last year. And so play call on 3rd down is where I had the issues as Bills. But yeah, I mean, that's what we're saying, right? Like we should have called timeout, I think, on that 3rd down or before that 3rd down play to give themselves a better situation. Yeah, I will say this because I made 2 notes. Pops mentions it here. There were 2 absolute bonehead calls, I thought, by the Cardinals.
I didn't hate the 3rd and 10 draw. The Bills played it perfectly, but I understand the logic, trying to catch them off guard. Pick up a big chunk, you have the timeouts. It's the James Conner one, which you're about to bring up. That was dumb.
Yeah, the James Conner 3rd and 4 run early in the 4th quarter, down deep in Bills territory. They run James Conner across the left, like an off tackle type of run where the Bills just got in the backfield and tackled them for no gain. Like that to me was, and then the Cardinals kick a field goal. Like they could have tied the game up, or would that have given them the lead at that point? I don't remember.
I think it would have given them the lead. Yeah.
So it's like that, and the run at the end. Yeah, you try to catch them off guard. You've seen Belichick and like other people do that, and like actually works sometimes. So,
and even with the run pass option for Josh Allen, the RPO that they ran, like it was clear on that 3rd and 3 that he was running it. There was no like pass option to it. Like, let your quarterback drop back. If the first or second read's not there, let him tuck it and run. The Bills should have done it on 3rd and 3 to try to go up by 10, and the Cardinals should have done it with Kyler. Leave the ball in Kyler's hands, let him drop back, right? If his first and second read's not there, he can tuck it and run it and pick up those 5 yards. Like it's just those to me, those are some boneheaded calls by both coordinators there. Flubbing, screwing up some of those 3rd down situations, but not the end of the world for the Buffalo Bills or the Arizona Cardinals, because I think most Cardinals fans I talked to today were just happy that it wasn't embarrassing, and most Bills fans that I talked to today are just happy that we won. So on to Miami. And this is where we will sort of end things tonight. We'll save our comments and our thoughts on Miami for Thursday night. We will be live 6 p.m. Eastern time, previewing Bills and Dolphins. Between now and then, you have Under Review with Joe DeRosa tomorrow night. You got Disguised Coverage with Pro Anth, I believe, tomorrow night. You got the Cover One Buffalo Boys on Wednesday night. Film Room has already dropped. It's in the video section of our YouTube channel, so check out the Film Room as well. Eric and Anth always do a great job. So plenty of content here in Cover One. I know it's a short week, but we got you covered. And Dave, any final thoughts before we head out of here tonight and see the people on Thursday night?
Oh, quick turnaround. Miami was down 14-0 against the Jags, and the Jags blew it, lost 17-14. Would have loved to see the Jags pull that one out, and then the Patriots surprisingly beating the Bengals. So this division, the Jets are losing right now to the Niners, but this division already has 3 teams that are 1-0. Would have really liked to see that Jags pull that off. So big game early in the season against Miami.
A couple of things that'll really help us out on our end, guys. If you really enjoy what you just watched here tonight, smash that like button. That goes a really long way in helping us with the algorithm. And if you could, the number one way that we can raise awareness here about the Air Raid Hour is to click that little share button at the bottom, copy the link and text it or email it to friends, family, anyone who you think would get a kick out of this Cover One Air Raid Hour Buffalo Bills post-game takeaway show. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate you guys as always. The comment section always bringing the fire. And Dave, until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comment section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!